countdown to the last comic shop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, it is now time for the last comic shop!
That's right, so collect all your nuts up and bury them somewhere, because we are opening the shop up. The newbies find their way underneath the comic book tent, and Chad will explain what that comment means, because it's not what you think it might mean.
We're keeping the lights on for the oldies that can't remember where they left all their nuts. Buried out in the yard somewhere? Or...
It's the fall. That's what people are doing. They're squirreling them away for the winter. You see how this works? I'm the host with the most, Andy Larson. I'm joined by Chad Smith and Jay Scott, as well as the wonderful George from Shortbox Summary for a leftover from the Year of Chad.
This is one of my favorite books of all time, and it's so
sucks.
different than everything else. Oh, man.
How do you really feel, George?
Yeah, jeez Louise.
In any case, if you didn't remember, all in 2023, Chad, periodically would throw out some of his favorite books, and The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl was not one of the ones that he got to in 2023. So here we are. We were short on our Marvel quota here in season 4. So I was like, Chad, you got another Marvel pick. And again, he picked The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Right?
There you go. And I brought it up on the show. I still believe in my heart of hearts this was the last best period of Marvel books for me. This is right around the Secret Wars era. But you had Squirrel Girl, you had Power Man and Iron Fist, that great David Walker series. I don't know if you listened to our Chip Zdarsky show on Avengers Twilight. This time period had some of my favorite Chip Zdarsky. It's why I held him in such high regard, and why Avengers Twilight, I was like, oh, I guess he's just this now. But
oh my god. I feel like I'm losing my mind right now.
But no, did you really like Twilight, or what was your take?
I love Twilight. Twilight was like Marvel did it for the first time in forever. There's like an out of continuity.
Do you mean Kingdom Come?
Trade paperback that I fuck off. Yes, but like there's a trade paperback that I can just like give someone, because like I feel like there's not a lot of like great one and done stories being done by either company right now.
I thought it was
That's
fine.
True. I said it was good.
But Squirrel Girl is the tops. It's the best that the medium has to offer.
Well, you know why I discovered Squirrel Girl was because of Chip Zdarsky. I was reading his Howard the Duck, and they did a crossover. And you might have seen a couple Chip Zdarsky references.
Sure did.
In Squirrel Girl. I guess him and Ryan North, or he and Ryan North and Erica Henderson have they're pals. But they did a crossover, 2-issue crossover. And so I bought the Squirrel Girl half of the crossover. And I was like, wait, what is this?
Well, before we get into this, with the review of The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, I think we're doing the first 2 volumes that you can get in trade still. We've brought George on from Shortbox Summary. Now, if you've never listened to Shortbox Summary, where the hell have you been spending your time? Because it's a great show. And George comes in our show often, and he does a segment that I absolutely love, which is putting comics in a pop culture context. He lists movies and other comics that were released around the same time that the comic book that we're reading today was released. So without further ado, this host with the most is going to shut up.
That was so sweet of an intro. I'm actually inspired to release an episode this year of Shortbox Summary. Thank you so much.
Well, that's the thing. See, what I do, inspire. That's what true leadership is. That's what I've heard from my mama.
That's what Squirrel Girl does, too. Anyway, go ahead.
I went with issue 1 of Squirrel Girl, which has a publishing date of January 6, 2015. On Billboard Hot 100 for January 10th, 2015. That is the same week that this issue was meant to be pulled from stores. Number 1, Blank Space by Taylor Swift.
I actually don't know what song that is. Come a few bars.
Got a blank space, baby.
Okay,
yeah, that one.
It's a song about some guy that broke her heart.
The music video is awesome for that one because it actually looks like they're at the house from like Cruel Intentions or Great Expectations or something, like some like beautiful, prestigious, austere house. And then it's just this guy who's driving her crazy and then her like going crazy. She takes like a golf club to the windshield of his beautiful Porsche. It's great. Good stuff.
Does it have a bathtub with the claw feet?
I think so, yeah.
Anytime you're in one of those like ritzy places, you got to get one of them bathtubers.
Number 2, Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
This is a great vintage thus far.
Every single 70-year-old dances to that song now at weddings. And they're like, I'm with the hips. I'm the Riz.
That is exactly what they do. Yeah. Number 3, Take Me to Church by Hosier.
That's Hosier. Is how I would pronounce that one.
Never knew how to pronounce that name.
Yeah. 4, Lips Are Moving by Meghan Trainor. And number 5, All About That Bass by Meghan Trainor.
Wow.
Two Meghan Trainor.
Ah, she obviously read the Squirrel Girl issue as well.
Yeah.
All about that bass.
Fucking that giant squirrel tail and all about that bass.
I tell you what, all 5 of those songs are bangers though. Like to this day.
At the box office, I just went for the month of January. So it was dominated because in late December, a movie came out called American Sniper. Clint Eastwood, Bradley Cooper.
Fake Baby.
Yes, that one. Number 2 at the box office, Taken 3.
Oh.
Okay.
Special set of skills includes lots of sequels.
I
was so like emotionally distraught by the second one being so awful that I passed on Taken 3. I didn't see that one in theaters. I don't know about you guys.
I don't think I got past halfway through Taken 1, and I was taken away from
the mom dies. The mom dies, or she
Spoilers.
died in Taken 2.
How dare you?
That's not even a full decade.
Sorry, everyone who's been just waiting for it to come out on Netflix. I just ruined it for you.
Number 3, speaking of disappointing art that we're going to talk about this podcast, The Hobbit: Battle of the Five Armies.
Oh,
those were rough.
Yes,
probably.
That was the one with the Legolas defies physics to run up a breaking bridge.
Well, but the whole problem with that is they took one book and they said, let's make a whole trilogy out of like one. Like there wasn't enough story.
Book.
There wasn't enough story there.
It was the shortest book that he wrote, you know. Like,
it's the most direct one too. To J.A.'s point, it's a kid's book. The magic ring isn't evil in that book. It's just a ring. Like, you know what I mean?
It has given rise to some very, very good fan edits where they've taken the 3 extended editions and just basically cut out everything that doesn't follow the book. And it makes for a nice little 4-hour movie.
Ooh, I'll have to check that out, actually.
Yeah.
Number 4 at the box office was this Disney movie that I had completely forgotten about called Into the Woods. Live action.
That's with the and Meryl Streep, right?
Yeah, where they have to like reclaim magical objects from fairy tales to like stop a family curse or whatever. And number 5, Unbroken, which is one I didn't see because I was all depressed out after American Sniper. And this is about an Olympian who's shot down in World War II. And it's in
this is the Angelina Jolie movie.
Thinks
she directed it.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
and so he's like floating on a raft, and he's picked up by like the Japanese Navy, and then sent to a POW camp with his comrades.
Yeah.
All right. So that's sharp contrast here. I don't think I've seen any of those movies, as opposed to the music.
But you loved all the pop songs. Yeah.
All the pop songs were wonderful. The movie.
Yeah. I mean, The Hobbit was terrible, but at least I watched it. Like I watched.
I did see that one.
Yes, I shelled out money. Yes, I went. The other ones, I didn't even bother to rent.
I haven't gotten to him yet, and Jay just spoiled one of them.
Into the Woods, that's based on a musical, right? That's like a Stephen Sondheim musical? Into the Woods, da-da-da-da.
You're thinking of that Frozen 2 song where he's lost in the woods.
No.
Lost in the woods.
It is a musical, a 1987 musical.
Yeah, I had to watch that in like middle school, and some reason I stayed awake.
Also, 3 weeks later, something very important happened to me. The Patriots won their 4th Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks in Glendale, Arizona, by a thin margin of 28-24 after a miraculous interception in the end zone by Malcolm Butler.
Was that the worst play call of all time? Where
you got Marshawn Lynch 1 yard away from the end zone, and you decide to do like an inside hook and like it was absolutely insane. And I'm
just hand it to beast mode and let him run it in.
Yeah, I'm biggest moment, the biggest game. Yeah, don't go to the best guy.
I I won't lie. I think that was the only time in the history of the universe I rooted for the Patriots. And just because I hated the Seattle Seahawks even more. They could have dropped a nuclear warhead on that stadium. I would have been happy. Really happy. I hated all of those folks. They always, as a Steelers fan, what can I say?
We won that Super Bowl, and I don't know why you're bitter.
Also, I did find the comic numbers, if you do want to talk about that.
Do it.
Oh, right now. Okay, yeah. January 2015. This is when issue 1 of Marvel's Star Wars relaunch happened.
There you go. The John Cassaday art on there.
Yeah, that stuff looked pretty good. It looked pretty good.
Yes.
A couple issues of Amazing Spider-Man in the top 10. Wolverines debuted, like I think the team up between Old Man Logan and Laura Kinney.
His kids.
There you go. I've never read that one.
I didn't either, to be honest. Batman issue 38, so still in the new 52, it seems like.
That's the best one.
Is that the double date?
That's the double date with Tom King.
Wait, no, that was Rebirth. This was still new 52, right?
Oh,
yeah, because Rebirth was 2016. Yeah.
Okay, my bad. Sorry, not the best one. This was people like the Scott Snyder stuff.
Yeah, but you should still go and read that double date issue. That's really good.
That's a really good book. Let's see. Unbeatable Squirrel Girl actually charted. It was the 29th in terms of units sold. It was the 25th in terms of dollars generated for its issue 1 debut. New Avengers 29. So I guess that's like right before Secret Wars was kicking out.
That's still in the lead up to Secret Wars. It would be a couple more months before that would all. But that's kind of sort of where Hickman was going into his end game. He's like, I got to start putting the pieces in place for Secret Wars later on this year.
Star Trek Planet of the Apes had like a little crossover that feels like a Chad book.
No, that's not a Chad. That's a me book.
Oh, that's an indie book. Sorry.
That's a me and Mikey Wood book. We're the ones that love anything with Planet of the Apes. They love bananas there.
Speaking of planets, Bitch Planet issue 2 came out.
Yes!
January 2015.
That was such a great series.
Speaking of Zdarsky, Sex Criminals issue 10. The Walking Dead 136.
When you talk about pop songs and movies and comics, man, comics is my jam. Like, there was a lot of good shit coming out in this month. I love this.
I was so broke at this point in time. I remember going out and buying Star Wars, the comic. And I remember just like, you know what, screw it. It's Star Wars, man. Like, I got to see what this book is. And I remember going to get the book and like coming back to my apartment to read it. And my girlfriend at the time was just like, oh, so like you're reading the Star Wars book right now? I'm like, yeah, I am. And I like turn the page and I like see like the crawl that is like the opening page of the book. And then she starts humming the Star Wars song as I'm like reading the crawl. And it's just like one of the sweetest things she's ever done for me. Which is such a weird thing to say because she does like incredible, amazing things for me. She is a wonderful person. I'm so lucky to have her. But that was just like such a perfect moment to me. I'm just like, God, you get it, man. You're the best.
Oh, that's really sweet, George. Thanks for sharing.
Those were the major pop culture happenings that were going on at that time.
All right. Well, that is actually a lot of awesomeness. So thank you so much, George, for filling our ear holes with that pop culture wonderfulness. And we will be right back after these commercial breaks with our review of The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Volumes 1 and Volume 2, as well as all these other things that they kind of crammed in to the trade paperback. Stay tuned.
Hey, it's Mikey Wood, frequent Last Comic Shop guest and collector. And as a collector, I'm always in need of boards, bags, long boxes, and more to house all those comics. That's why I use promo code LCSPOD to get 10% off my orders at bcwsupplies.com. Not only does it get me a discount on BCW's already low prices, but I know using LCSPOD at checkout is another way I can show my support to the Last Comic Shop podcast and their continuing mission to bring fans together under that big comic book tent. So if you're in need of comic book supplies, head out to bcwsupplies.com and use promo code LCSPOD today. That's LCSPOD.
In a world where there's often 60 plus years of history to worry about, how can you quickly get into a new comic character or franchise? If you're like me, then you turn to video games. But how well does that work out? In some cases, pretty well. In others, it's a giant disaster. But how can you know which games will set you on the right path and which games will just leave you more confused than you were before? Play Comics is the show for you. I'm Chris, and each episode we take a look at video games based on comic properties and how well they stick to that source material. So listen in and get the scoop on which games are worth your time over at playcomics.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for us to get into one of the most unique books that Marvel has produced in the last 2 decades. Time is weird. It is the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Like we said, we read the original run of issues 1 through 8 with some back matter, with volumes 1 and 2 in trade paperback. But Jay, who created this work here?
Yeah, so I'm just going to cover the actual Unbeatable Squirrel Girl stuff. Some of the tie-in stuff is like there's a Steve Ditko, the original Squirrel Girl, where she shows up for the first time and other things. But the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, the main comic we read, was written by Ryan North with art by Erica Henderson, trading card art within the comic by Maris Wicks, colors by Rico Renzi, letters by VC's Clayton Cowles, and then covers were mostly done by Erica Henderson, and there's some variant covers. Obviously, some by Art Adams, Paul Mounts, Saya Ohm, and Scotty Young.
There you go. And Andy, why don't you do the honors of giving us the 10-cent synopsis of Squirrel Girl?
All right. Well, before the squirrel haters get on this show and ruin Chad's day, I'm going to give a good 10-cent synopsis of the first eight issues, because honestly, I'm kind of on the fence about it, just a little bit. So I'm hoping that this episode may, one way or the other, tip the balance in somebody's favor. But really,
I'm gonna ruin it.
The 10-cent synopsis is Squirrel Girl. You know her. She's cute. She's kind of quirky. She has squirrel-related powers, and she runs around with Tippy Toe, who is her squirrel sidekick. Well, she decides that she needs a secret identity, and so she's enrolled in Empire State, the same place where Spider-Man went to college, in order to, have a secret identity. So
no, it's to learn and grow as a person.
Whatever. She just wanted to go there. It was a MacGuffin. But as she gets there, she gets a roommate who's super cool, who has a cat. She meets like Chipmunk Hunk, who's like this dude that can talk to chipmunks. There's Koi Boy, another dude that can talk to fish. And then she basically defeats everybody that would be a threat in the Marvel universe. I guess that's her deal. Like, she has an issue where she beats Galactus by herself, but again, not through punching and kicking, but taking him to a planet full of nuts. Because that's what she does. Later on, she has
eats nuts and kicks butts. Sorry, go ahead.
She has a 4-issue run where she fights an Asgardian squirrel that runs around talking trash on everybody while they sleep, and as a result, everybody kind of goes crazy, and so she has to kind of bring balance back to the universe. And then there's some awesome stories featuring her in other books, which I actually genuinely liked. I think even a little bit more. I really loved that original Steve Ditko issue. I thought it was quirky, and Dr. Doom was in it, and I don't know. I did not like her creature design though. The black diamonds in the eyes. No, thank you. No, that was classic. That was Steve Ditko. A little bit weird, a little bit off-putting, a little bit creepy, and I kind of liked it. And
right. And before we go on the count of 3, I want us all to say the rat god from Thor. How did you pronounce it?
I know I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not like so.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope I don't offend any Norse squirrels with my pronunciation of this.
All right.
Yes.
We all ready? In 1, 2, 3. Reduce.
Ratatosker. Yeah, that worked.
Ratatosker. I can't say it fast.
That's what I said. I said it's Ratatosker.
Not Ratatosker.
That is the 10-cent synopsis of the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, the first 8 issues that were in this trade. Now, as I mentioned before, I am on the fence about this. My initial thoughts.
Sorry.
My initial thoughts. of this is I am genuinely a fan of Ryan North's writing. I've read some other stuff that Ryan North has done on this podcast, even like we did earlier in the year. We had George on. We read several issues of the Fantastic Four. I did at the time think that series was a little bit hit or miss. And then we read the Slaughterhouse 5, and that was kind of an adaptation of somebody else's work, but he still did a good job on that. I feel like this is even more of a kind of a hit or miss than his work on Fantastic Four, in that I kind of went back and forth between feeling like, oh, wow, he's being really clever and I'm laughing with him, to he's being really snarky and he's laughing at me. And as somebody that doesn't like to get laughed at for enjoying the comic tropes that I do, I don't know if I felt comfortable with that. I got where he was going, but I was kind of offended at times. I was like, you know what? You, Ryan North. I don't need to take this shit from you. I like comics. Shut up. Any case, what did everybody else think? That's my initial thoughts. So,
boy, I think you're working too hard to be offended there, buddy. Just calm down. Take a relax and chill out a little bit.
I speak my mind.
I approached this because I knew Chad really loved it. So I figured, well, it's got to be good. And after the first issue, I was like, well, it's got to be good, right? Chad really loves it. And man, I really struggled with this. It was just very saccharine, very sweet, very tongue-in-cheek, but in a way that I said either I just don't get it, which is very possibly true, or it's just bad and I'm not enjoying any of it. And I thought it was the former. I thought that I probably just don't get it. But then George sort of agrees with me. So then now I know that, no, it's the latter. It's trying too hard to do a thing, and it doesn't quite work. It's trying to make fetch happen, yeah.
George, before we bring Chad in, your thoughts.
So this isn't really a problem I deal with now as an adult. You guys probably deal with it differently as parents. But like, remember when you were younger and you'd go over to a friend's house and you were so excited to hang out with your friend, and then they had a younger brother that just wouldn't shut up ever and just like kept trying to be like the class clown for your little hangout session, and it was like forced to hang out with you because Chad begged you to read this book for the podcast, and you're like, yeah, I guess I have to read this book. It felt like having a younger brother who just like wouldn't stop talking in my ear. I thought this book was so misplaced. Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm trying so hard to put myself back in the shoes of 2015 and wonder if this is like, was this really like the chic, popular way to talk? And like, granted, I have the smallest amount of tolerance for postmodernism of anyone I know. And so I think that is probably why I found this book so particularly grating. And like, I like it when it's done earnestly. Like when a book like The Ultimates does postmodernism, like, oh, this is interesting. When this book did it, like I was saying before, like it really feels like someone's Tumblr page just like crawled off the internet and then did its best impression of a Marvel comic. I do think that there were some really great moments in the book. I think her talking to Galactus was great. I like the idea that she did try to resolve conflicts like through conversation. But even then, those conversations, I almost wish they were more sincere and genuine. And they honestly just felt like nerds pointing out flaws in logic on a message board. You didn't come here to eat the earth. You came here for the same reason people order take it. It's like, all right, that's like kind of like a weird way to do that. Like, I thought you were going to be like a sincere, sweet, genuine response just about like the nature of desire and hunger and all that stuff. And then again, it just became like frankly, a nerd's argument about something that I just didn't care about. And I feel like that happens so many times throughout the book where, like, I thought they were setting something up to be sweet. I thought they were setting something up to be genuine. And then it just, oh, amazeballs, unicorn splat, you know, just like stuff like that where I'm like, God damn, like, what if you talked like a person?
Oh, right. You're angry because you can't die. So why don't you go fight sea creatures?
Yeah. Right, okay. Thank you. That is such like, ugh.
The one moment I did appreciate was when she threw up her squirrel pal tippy toe into the air on the moon so he could see what Galactus looks like, because Galactus looks like You, and it's a giant squirrel Galactus. That was cute. Everything else, nah.
It's actually good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Chad. I know you've been champing at the bit and you've been very patient. The year of Chad, I don't think has ever come under assault this highly. So, you don't have to defend this. Why do you like it? That's really.
No, I'm going to try to do both. Jay mentions that it's very saccharine and sweet. That's absolutely true. George mentions that it's a lot like that little brother that keeps bursting in and like saying little, non sequiturs and things to be funny. It's not that your arguments aren't totally without merit, right? But here's where I take some umbrage. Jay said that it's trying too hard to do a thing. Jay, can you show me another book that's trying to do what Squirrel Girl does?
Yeah, I thought of a book and it came after this, so that's why I was reticent to bring it up. But
okay,
since you've thrown me on the mercy of the court, I feel I should mention. I think Faith did it a lot better. One. The Valiant book.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't read it because it's Valiant, but I heard good things. The court rests on that one. All right, so George, you mentioned that it didn't feel sincere, right?
Yeah.
Now, my question for you is, who would you say the target audience might be for a Squirrel Girl?
I would assume the target audience is younger women, just like with the character, but I also can see it being towards middle-aged men at the same. Well, no, just because it's the reason in college where I was buying like Batgirl and Supergirl, like I thought those were some of the best books that were coming out in like 2009, 2010, like the Sterling Gates, Jamal Eagle Supergirl, the Brian Q. Miller, I want to say Lee Garbett Batgirl. It was just like, hey man, like I'm a 20-year-old dude, like I can't relate to being a girl. So like I kind of want to read art about something I don't understand. So I didn't mean that in like a weird way. I just meant like, oh, it's like a completely different perspective, where it's just like this book is unlike Spider-Man. This book is unlike Captain America. This book is just completely in its own trail,
No, I don't disagree. I do think this is, it's aimed for more of an all-agey audience, but you're looking primarily at like teenage girls, right? So it's a different audience. It's not middle-aged men. I don't think, but I can't think of a better match for how teenage girls solve problems than the way that Squirrel Girl approaches life and the way that she sees things, and as opposed to just being like nerd fiction or whatever, which that's in here, that's part of it, which I thought they played with to great effect. Honestly, one of the things I was hoping for, and I harken back to way back in our archives when we read Jimmy Olsen. And you remember Jimmy Olsen?
Yeah, the Matt Fraction run,
yeah, where it started out and it was too clever by half. And I remember reading that book and like I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then like 3 or 4 issues in, I'm like, oh, this is not awesome. And then by the time it rolled back all the way around to the end, I was like, no, wait, it is awesome. It's so over the top. It's awesome. I was hoping this would have the same effect. Doesn't seem like that's happened. For me, I like the tongue-in-cheekness. I was talking the other day about the Marvels movie, and I was like, that's the perfect movie for weird girls. And this is what Squirrel Girl is. This is a book you can hand to that teenager who doesn't quite fit in the universe and be like, here, it's okay, right? And I love the humor in this book. I love just how silly it is. You guys, how are you mad at her challenging Kraven the Hunter to hunt the biggest and best that he could do?
Well, that's the thing. And I think I'm going to go back to my initial thought about how, like, I was on the fence about this. And because I can understand your point, Chad, about it appealing to that particular audience. And sometimes I think maybe that's when I like the book more. Honestly, the part that I found insufferable was when Ryan North took that postmodern, and the book was not aimed at teenage girls. It was aimed at people that have been reading comics for a really long time, know a lot about the Marvel Universe, and he's like, all this stuff that you hold maybe sacred or, you find like super interesting or stuff, and I'm just going to make fun of it. When
not laughing with you, but laughing at you.
Exactly. It felt like I was in a study hall and I had some bookworm walking up to me and being like, comics aren't real, good stuff. Why don't you try reading a book once in a while? You know. And I was just like, but you're writing comics. Like, why are you degrading the field that you're like? I just didn't get it. And maybe you can help me into that.
I think it's a matter of perspective. I don't think this is going after your people that know it all. Otherwise, you wouldn't need the Deadpool's Guide to Supervillain cards. And
why would you bring up Gigantor issue 4 of Fantastic Four? He shows up for like 2 seconds. Why would you do that? I get it that you have to include the card, but like you're deep diving. Like people that deep dive, that's what Chip Zdarsky does. That's what Matt Fraction does. They deep dive, and I don't know. Sometimes that can become insufferable. You even said it yourself with that Jimmy Olsen stuff, like in Chip's work sometimes.
Yeah, no, I that's a fault of mine that I love Insufferable. Like I eventually came around to Jimmy Olsen.
I've been your friend for 25 years. You can be.
I can be insufferable. I love Insufferable. I don't know. I just think there's not a book like this in recent memory where, like, let's look at Erica Henderson's art. This is not your typical superhero art. The figures are, I don't want to say grotesque.
They're a little loose. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's
Rough
not an
around the edges.
idealized world, but it's so much closer, even though it's cartoony in nature. Just after so many books where everybody looks the same and everything out of DC looks like a Jim Lee drawing, boy, was this nice to find some art that was different, that took a different perspective on things.
Yeah.
I thought, the way that she solved her problems through listening, through empathy, not being afraid to punch jerks, but it wasn't the end goal, wasn't all the punching. I love the whole attitude to it. I love Nancy Whitehead, her roommate, and then Ratatoskar. It's that second at that gets me.
Yeah.
Ratatoskar.
I do want to bring up my favorite issue because I feel like, again, some people have dumped on this, but there was one issue that stood out to me that I said, this is genuinely good. And I felt fit not only kind of sort of what I was expecting from a series like this, especially with the art. Again, Erica Henderson's art in this kind of reminded me of stuff I would see in like Mad Magazine back in the day, where it was like that kind of superhero parody stuff. It's good. I mean, you can tell that she's a talented artist, but it's also cartoony enough that it's like, yeah, this is kind of sort of parody. But the one issue that I really liked was that issue where everyone was telling the stories about who Squirrel Girl was. Right? Like they're all trapped in the Statue of Liberty and they're telling like, the story about the clones, and then they're telling, oh, she's from the future and this and that. And then like her roommate's like, nah, none of these stories are true. But that one I thought worked. And I also thought it was more akin to what Ryan North's doing with the Fantastic Four, in which it's kind of was like a one and done. And then you move on to something else. Last thing I'll say is, when you said to J.A. and you challenged him to think of somebody that did this better, I don't know, John Byrne's Sensational She-Hulk, pretty damn good for being something that was different when they were walking through page ads. I like that one more.
Yeah, with the overly sexualized She-Hulk. I don't think this art is parody. I think this is filling a void that it isn't there in your modern superhero comics. You don't see that from Marvel or DC ever. And so you have a superhero that doesn't look like a supermodel. She looks like a regular college kid, except for Chipmunk Hunk. He's obviously very,
hunky. Yeah.
Hunky. Yeah. It's in the name. But I think the way that Squirrel Girl approaches problems, looks at life, the humor, you can see her empathizing, and you can empathize with her being put in those situations. Like when she makes her friend go to the zoo and try to talk to the animals because maybe she has power. She just doesn't know it. Have you tried talking to the lemurs? Like there's so many silly gimmicks. I love it.
I'm happy that this is a book I can comfortably and confidently give my 6-year-old niece and like not worry, because like Marvel doesn't make a lot of books like that. Like I think Primer from DC is like one of the only DC books I could do that with for my niece right now, and so it is nice having that option. I think humor is just really hard to do in a comic book. I just don't think this book is funny. I think like that's like ultimately like the biggest issue for me. I don't think it's funny, and I do think it's like incredibly overwritten.
That is true. Ryan North is very verbose, but one thing we've been verbose on is this particular segment. We got to get to ratings and recommendations, so we'll be right back after these commercial breaks with those ratings, as well as other books you can pick up in addition to Squirrel Girl. Stay tuned.
You know what I think? This world we're in right now is the fairy tale. And what's really real is on the other side.
Ramsey, mechanic by day, aspiring comic book creator by night, went into the woods and tripped. He was bombarded by bizarre and mysterious glyphs that he drew into his sketch pad and onto the body of his muse, Regina.
Oh, groovy! Your art is crawling all over me.
Shit. What is going on with you?
What's going on with you? All of a sudden, you're a complete drip, baby. Maybe you need another limb to the head. Ah!
Bloom, written and created by Ted Sikora, with art by Butch Mappa.
How are you feeling, Ram Man?
You've never experienced a story so astonishing, so far out and away from the beaten path.
Where in the am I?
Blast off with Bloom, the origin of a prophet. Order yours at herotomorrow.com.
All right, we're back with more of the Last Comic Shop, and it is now time for ratings. Where are we going to break Chad's heart? Are we going to tear it to pieces? Are we going? Should we talk to him more often than throwing these punches like we have all this episode? I don't know. We're here to kick butts and do something else. Which
Eat nuts.
I can't say it. I can't say it. JA's got our 1 out of 4 scale, and what is it this week?
It's acorns. That's right. How many nuts are you giving this book?
Yeah, it's the fall. The oak trees were great. We're going to start off with George, because George said he was a little bit nicer than he was going to be. But I now he can just let loose, and he can throw the acorns where they may. George, what are you giving this?
I'm gonna give this book 1.5 acorns. I don't think it's bad. I agree with Chad that I'm not the target audience, and like I said, I think every issue has like a moment that's really special. Like I think her sitting like on Galactus' shoulder watching like Earthrise was like, this is just like such a sick moment. Like this is such like a cool page. And then I just think it's like squandered after that. And I think that happens multiple times throughout the book, like throughout like every issue in the book. Like I think they set something up really nice and they get 95% of the way there, and then they just fall short of what I think a better execution would have been. But that said, like great moments are really hard to find in books. So I'm gonna give it a 1.5, like so close to 2, but I don't see myself returning this book anytime soon.
You're gonna miss the crate man.
It isn't in there. I thought it was going to be.
I know. I couldn't remember.
I was surprised.
Didn't show up till volume 2.
I will go next. I'm going to give this a little bit higher than George. I'm going to give this about a 2.25. Yeah, a little bit better than average because half the issues I liked, or half of the issue I liked. And I was very on the fence about this. I could not decide whether it was laughing with me or laughing at me, and that's harsh. That's harsh, Ryan. Why are you laughing at me? Why?
You didn't appreciate when he taught you computer coding skills?
I didn't. I didn't. And that was kind of like those insufferable moments when you're sitting with somebody and you're just like, yes, you know more than me. That's great. That's awesome. But you don't have to say it. Like, we're just having coffee, buddy. Not everything has to be a diatribe about T.S. Eliot. Like, we don't need it. And I won't lie. I mean, everybody knows me. I think Erica Henderson is a wonderful artist. I didn't like the art. I didn't. I never settled into it. It wasn't about it not being over-sexualized like a lot of other. I just thought the characters looked ugly. Like even Squirrel Girl, she was supposed to look like normal people, and I was just like, no, normal people don't always look like that. No, they yeah. She's
Listen,
like athletic.
dude, I just came from the water park. There's all kinds of shapes and sizes out there.
But she's athletic. She has superpowers. Like you don't Yeah, no, I just didn't care for it. It wasn't my type of cartooning. So a 2.25. JA.
It's a 2 for me. It was an okay. Halfway through, I realized that at the bottom of every page, in the bottom margin, in not black, so very hard to read for this middle-aged man's eyes, was this tiny little writing, and I was like, oh crap. So then I had to go back and read every one of them, and that is half an hour of my life that I will never get back.
So I think they hit better if you read them as you go. But anyway.
Yeah, they don't stand up. That's the thing. It's just snark. It's a line of snark that maybe it works on the page in the moment, but if you go back and read it, it doesn't work. That tells you what it is then. It is there not to really add value to the page at all. It is there as performative art. And sometimes performative art is great. Other times performative art is just a cheap mime in the street trying to make a couple bucks and annoying everybody.
Wow. Jay was way I watched this episode.
They just called this mime. Yikes.
So, I mean, that just the writing at the bottom of the page is what I'm referring to, not the entire thing. The entire thing was okay. That's why I give it a 2. I liked there's some moments. I thought actually her interaction with Galactus was nice when she was talking to him, except for that whole, I agree with George, the whole, Galactus is destruction, and yet at the same time, he's too lazy to go find a place to eat, so he comes to Earth so that other people can do a DoorDash for him. I don't know if the target audience is young girls, though, because there are a lot of stuff that you kind of need to know about superheroes and the way superhero comics work, or you miss a lot of this because it's so postmodern. And the only time that postmodernism works is if you understand what it's critiquing, sure. I feel. So
yeah, I don't think my 6-year-old niece can really wrap her head around this. Close to how there's the joke in a Pixar movie that's the kid laughs because someone falls over, but the thing that makes them fall over is why the parents laugh. But probably not because the margins weren't very funny.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's a 2. And I'm not even going to get into that whole character that's just squirrels piled on top of each other.
All right, Chad, you're up last. Is this a 4 for you?
No, it absolutely is a 4. So here's the thing. I don't think that your criticisms are totally invalid. Everybody has their own way of seeing things. That's what makes the world go round. But what I see in Squirrel Girl that I don't know that you guys are picking up is the fact that this is something unlike everything else that Marvel Comics or DC Comics or comics at large has been publishing. I don't think it's performative. I think it's hopeful. I don't think it's mocking you. I think it thrills and discovery, right? I think that it gives you those little educational moments or those other little comments here. And I don't think it's intended for people that are so steeped in comics that you're going to get offended whenever someone has fun with some of the comic characters. I'm not mad when they mess with Galactus or they bring in Thor and Loki and we have Cat Thor and then Loki turns his head into the giant cat head to bother Thor and that felt like brothers antagonizing each other. I love that stuff. I love the positive solutions in this book. And so those are all things that while I don't think I'd recommend it for a 6-year-old, I think if you've got that teenager that is sometimes looking at the world with a unique vision or doesn't necessarily go along with the crowd, I think this is a wonderful influence. I think this is what superhero comics should be more of, where it's inspiring people to do good and to look for other ways to see things and to inspire others and not just solve problems through punching, but because it's a superhero comic, there's punching. Whether it is the shape of the characters, the art style, which I think Erica Henderson is a wonderful cartoonist. I love Ryan North's energy, and I think you see that come through in a lot of his other work. I just think so much about this. It is an answer to a problem I didn't know comics had until I read Squirrel Girl. It fills a void in such a joyful way, in such a silly way. I can't help but every time I pick up an issue, my face lights up. The exuberance there. But if you've got that teen in your life, boy or girl, I think this is a great book. I remember I gave this to my son when he was 11, and he tore through all 50 issues. I know my daughter, SiriusXM, has a Squirrel Girl radio show podcast starring the lady from the, I think it's AT&T commercials, the Melissa Weintraub.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But she picked up the role in a podcast that is hilarious. And my 6-year-old daughter sat in the back of the car and listened to those and laughed her head off. But I just think it fills a void in so many ways that at the end of the day, like, I'm proud that this is a comic that I can give people that's not everything else. It's not Watchmen. It's not Batman. It's not grim and gritty. It's about the power of friendship. It's about the power of empathy, of listening, and all that other stuff. I do feel badly that it didn't necessarily tickle your fancy for the crew here, but for the rest of you folks out there that are looking for something different, looking for that thing that's a little off kilter, that don't mind fun or joy.
Wow.
There he goes.
And here
I'm sorry it didn't tickle your fancy, but you're a joyless bunch of old middle-aged curmudgeons.
Sometimes
Get
children
off
have
my
to
lawn.
punch the jerks in the throat and move on with their day. I do think it's a different audience. That is all I'm getting at.
And that's cool, because at the Last Comic Shop, we know that there are plenty of audiences out there, and that's why we have recommendations. Yes, these are other comic books that you can pick up in addition to the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl Volume 1 and Volume 2, as well as a myriad of other volumes. I think in total, I think there were 12 trades that encompass all of these issues. So, like, however you want to digest it, if you are so inclined. But these are other books that you might want to check out. And we're going to start off with J.A. Scott. So, J.A., what do you got for us?
So I was going to recommend the new giant size Silver Surfer issue because this is great.
Yeah. I bought that. Didn't read it yet.
It's good.
What reprint did they go with?
Silver Surfer 80. It was a Terrax versus Morgue issue.
Oh, that's a deep dive. I expected John Buscema or...
No. It was Ron Lim, Ron Mars, Terrax, and Silver Surfer, and Moondragon shows up for a little bit. But I was going to recommend that, but I also want to recommend the first volume of the Faith series, because if you like Squirrel Girl, or you want something that is about a heroine that's not super sexy and slim and does everything the right way, I think Hollywood and Vine, that's the first volume of the Faith Valiant comic book trade paperback, is well worth picking up as well. So Faith is Zephyr from the original Harbinger from the 90s.
That's another one I couldn't pronounce.
Well, that was the name she gave herself. Everyone else called her Zeppelin.
Yeah, that was harsh, but that's a good pick. I've had that Faith book in my read pile for quite a long time. I might have to move it to the top after this week's show. My recommendation comes along with the fact that I really love Dr. Doom. That's why I really love that one issue of Squirrel Girl that was included in the first trade paperback, because you got Dr. Doom drawn by Steve Ditko, and that's just awesome. But if you want to talk about awesome people drawing awesome Dr. Doom, nothing was better than earlier this year when Days of Doom, Doom #1 came out and hit stands. Boy, oh boy, did I love it. Sanford Green just draws his heart out on this particular series with plot, script, art. He works with Jonathan Hickman on that. Rachel Rosenberg is on colors. It's just a tour de force surrounding a story where Dr. Doom is found near death out in the middle of the cosmos. And it's only his magic, not his science, that kept him alive until Valeria comes and picks him up and is like, Uncle Doom, you got to get back in that fight, man. Turns out that the entire universe has been ravaged by Galactus. Just absolutely crushed. Galactus, who has let his hunger just engulf him to such a degree that he has decided to destroy everything. He's tired of this universe. He fights the Celestials, get a machine so he can reset the universe and see what the next universe has in store. Dr. Doom's like, ain't on my watch. This is my universe, buddy. And so, like, he works with Valeria to craft this armor that he's going to take down Galactus with. And boy, there's an awesome fight with a bunch of molecule men. And at the end of the day, not to give too much spoilers, but but you actually don't even get to see the fight between Doctor Doom and Galactus in this first issue. You don't. It ends with a cliffhanger. And I think they've come out with another issue since then, but like, I wish that this series had just topped with this one. And boy, Sanford Green is just, he could draw Doctor Doom stories till the end of time, and I'd be perfectly happy. Chad.
Yeah, like that's more realistic than fighting Squirrel Girl. But my recommendation, just because I keep thinking of something else that I've defended before, and I think society at large misunderstands it, is the old Batman 66, the TV show and then the comic series that came out a few years back from DC Comics that had a ton of great talent attached. Tom Pyre, who we talked with before on the show, wrote for that. Jeff Parker wrote a ton of issues. You had the Mike Allred covers, occasionally Mike Allred stories. And it really was just a fun encapsulation of a different style of comics. And it also was bringing that joy and that silliness and was making fun of Andy and the fact that he liked all these comic book heroes. No, but it had that camp silliness to it that, you know, it wasn't meant to be taken too seriously, but then at the end of the day, there are those moments that could hit home. And so Batman 66 is just fun. It's another thing that brings joy and a smile to my face.
So George, wrap us up. What is your recommendation this week?
I think if you are curious about this book, I actually think like some cartoons kind of hit the vibe of this a little bit better. Like I think that the Netflix She-Ra show that fits into like the scheme here. I think Steven Universe fits into the scheme here. Operating kind of like this. I actually think Marvel's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, that cartoon, is actually super awesome. My niece really likes that one. And that's another book I think that made it to 50 issues. That's another book that like I've only read the first couple issues of, but really enjoyed. But my book recommendation is going to be a line of comics actually called the Marvel Age. And this was an initiative that was coming out in like 2004, and it was kind of capitalizing on the popularity of the Spider-Man movie, the Fantastic Four movie that was about to come out, the Hulk movie came in, I want to say 2003, the X-Men, all this stuff. And so it was basically like retelling major beats from like main characters of the Marvel Universe in a more simple, digestible way. And when I first started like getting really into comics, like I didn't really care if I was reading like the real Fantastic Four. I just liked the Fantastic Four. And so I bought a bunch of these books. Tales of the Thing is an excellent like 3-issue miniseries where he hangs out with like Doctor Strange one issue, hangs out with the Hulk one issue, and then hangs out with I think just like Sue Storm in the 3rd issue. Like it's like the crackers of comic books, you know, like it's like a light snack. It's not as filling as a meal. There are some books that are just wildly inappropriate. Like the Emma Frost book was somehow categorized as a Marvel Age book, and like, dude, no, it's not.
Really?
There was some shifty stuff that happened in that book where it's like, how did that get the Marvel Age branding on it? There's also a book called Sentinel, which it gets kind of heavy at one point where this guy stages like a sentinel crashes into like his town and he discovers it, and he's kind of bullied and reprograms it to be his friend, and then like programs it to attack the school he goes to so that he can be the hero and stop it. And then he like has the revelation. He's just like, oh man, I'm like not that different than those guys at Columbine. And it's like, oh, that's a children's book where he's having this conversation.
Wow.
So like some of them are definitely heavier than others. Like Runaways was originally a Marvel Age imprint, and like I think they just called it Marvel Age because like this was them kind of chasing the manga audience, and so everything was reprinted as like a little digest book.
Yeah, I remember that they were in that digest form. I was about to ask you. I bought a bunch of those for my nephews at that time because they were like 6-7 years old, and they really, I just wanted them to have comics.
A bunch of them, again, are really good and are super appropriate for nephews and nieces. Others, not so much. But no, like, it was just a fun time. And like this, I've covered some of these books on my show before. Like, I absolutely love Mary Jane Homecoming, and Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane. I think those books are just fantastic.
Chef's kiss. Yeah.
And so just in the interest of young readers out there, if you have Marvel Unlimited, I think most, if not all of these books are available. So just type in Marvel Age into Marvel Unlimited app. And
so a little bit of trivia here from Comic Book Legends Reveal column was that the Marvel Age or Marvel Adventures line originally was pitched by Darwin Cook. Like, it was his passion. He wanted to do the all ages line for comic. They solicited a pitch from him, and there's art out there on the interwebs, and then they never called him back.
That sucks, man. The books are good. I actually think the art is pretty good. I don't love the Marvel Adventures line as much. Like, that felt way more... It's going to sound so stupid talking about like what is now a multi-billion-dollar company and an arm of Disney. It felt so much more like commercialized. Like, it really felt like Walmart was the publisher. Like, everything kind of looked like a lunchbox in the Marvel Adventures books.
But that was one of the first places I saw Scotty Young covers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were doing some wild stuff in there too. You want Fred Van Lente writing Spider-Man like he should be? That stuff's in there. There's some great comic books in those lines.
Spider-Man versus Doctor Doom issue in Marvel Age.
Yeah.
Where it's like retelling that story that I think happened in like the original volume, where it's like he's like the part of the consulate, so like he can't be touched, and Spider-Man has to like figure a way to stop Doctor Doom from doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm rambling. Marvel Age, check it out on Marvel
Okay. Well, that's fine, George. We love you talking about comics, and we hope that you come back next week to hear us talk more about comics here at the Last Comic Shop. Again, you can never miss any of our episodes by simply just going out to www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com and rate, reviewing, and subscribing. We are on all of the podcasting platforms as well as YouTube. So wherever you want to listen to our show, we are available for you. And we are continuing that countdown to our 200th episode. Yes, that is right around the corner in just a couple weeks. We're going to bring George back as well as a myriad of our other favorite co-hosts and guest hosts, Mikey Wood, Nicole, Ethan. They'll all be back. We're going to cover Watchmen. We're going to divvy it out. We're going to give each person 3-issue part of that storyline for them to read. So we hope if you have enjoyed folks like George and Mikey, that you come back for this celebration of everything Last Comic Shop.
And while we may be the Last Comic Shop podcast, we don't want to be the last comic shop. So we encourage you guys to get out there, seek out those Squirrel Girl issues and trades, seek out things like Valiant's Fate or that giant size Silver Surfer issue from a bit back. Seek out those Marvel Age, Marvel Adventure issues, and seek out Doom from Sanford Green, just because that is awesome. But yeah, all that and more waits for you at your local comic shops. And then you can always circle back to our website, www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com, where they can find what else, Jay, Andrew, Scott.
Now we have links to our merch store. You can get t-shirts. Halloween is coming up, so we're going to have that Halloween special out there soon. If it's not already on the shop, we've also got tote bags, coffee mugs, and this week only, you can get a suit of squirrel armor. That's right.
We'll put them in little Last Comic Shop t-shirts, each of them individually. They'll look like a bunch of like Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Just going to point out that squirrels are just rats with better PR agencies.
All right. Well, George, you don't have a PR agency. You are your PR agency for Shortbox Summary, a fantastic podcast that you can listen to today. George, tell everybody where they can find your awesome show.
You can find my show anywhere podcasts are sold for the low, low price of $0. In fact, you can pre-order the next episode right now by just going into your podcast catcher of choice and typing in Shortbox Summary. And guess what? It'll be delivered right there, day and date, as soon as it comes out, right into your beautiful little phone box. It's going to be fantastic.
Wow. You do that so well. It's almost like you know what you do. In any case, we hope that you think that we know what we're doing, which is talking comics, and you come back next week. Until then, I was the host of the most, Andy Larson. I was joined by Chad Smith, Jay Scott, and the wonderful George from Shortbox Summary. And we hope that you stay safe, stay nutty. Yeah!
Did you know that koalas, like a lot of them just have chlamydia?
Are those the ones that also poop in cubes?
I don't know. I've never heard anything about cube poop. That sounds incredible, though.
Oh, wombats.
Wombats pooping cubes? Did you just search cube poop?
Well, poop cubes, but yeah.
The Last Comic Shop podcast was a 2024 Black Angus production.